In the last video, we reviewed some of the different types that are available to us with Solidity. One of the more important types that we have access to is the address type. And so as soon as we start talking about storing the address of the person who created this contract, well, chances are we're going to want to make that variable of type address. So at this point, I think that we're ready to start working on the contract, and I think we'll get started by declaring some of these initial variables inside of it. To write this contract, we're going to be using the Remix editor again. Personally, I really like using Remix because it just makes it so easy to quickly iterate and test your contract. Eventually, we'll copy paste this contract over to our code editor again and write some tests around it with Mocha, just like we did previously. But for this first run through, we're going to use Remix to do some quick iteration. Remember that you can get access to Remix by going to remix.ethereum.org. Now, when you come here, you're probably going to see our code from the previous contract, the inbox contract, appear in the code window. We don't really need this contract anymore. We've already got a backup of it inside of our code editor from the last section. So I'm going to highlight the entire contract and delete it. Now do remember that we want to leave behind the pragma mark here so that we can specify the version of Solidity that we want to use. Now on line 3, we can declare our new contract by using the contract keyword. And then we'll specify the name of this contract, which is going to be lottery, like so. Now in the first line of the body of the contract function, we're going to start to define the different variables that we want to have access to. We're going to discuss the players variable in a little bit. So for right now, we're just going to focus on the manager variable. Remember the order of declarations that we use to make a new variable. We specify the type, its visibility, and then the variable name. So in this case, the type of variable we want to make is address. We want its visibility to be public, and the variable name will be manager. Now you might be kind of curious about public in this case. Remember, we have already discussed the visibility can be either public or private. Using public or private enforces no security whatsoever over the data inside of your contract. Using public or private is much more about making it clear to other developers whether or not they should be able to easily access this variable. In this case, I'm going to make manager public because we are going to eventually write a front-end JavaScript application around this lottery contract. And from that JavaScript application, I want to make sure that we can easily access the address of the person who created it. In other words, easily access the manager variable. Now the next thing we need to think about is exactly how we're going to set the value of manager. We want the manager variable to contain the address of whoever created this contract. So chances are we're going to want to set the value of this variable right here the instant someone creates an instance of lottery, or the instant someone deploys this contract. Remember that there is one function that gets automatically called whenever we create a new instance of a contract, and that is the constructor function. We can define a constructor by making a function that has the same exact name as the contract. So we'll say function lottery, we'll specify its visibility as public, and then we can put it in the function body. So inside of here, we can add some code to take the address of whoever just deployed this contract and assign that to the manager variable. When we worked on the inbox contract previously, we took in an argument to the constructor function. Remember, that was the initial message. So you might be thinking that we want to take in an argument of the address of the person who creates this thing. And that would imply that whoever creates this needs to provide their address as an argument to the contract. But that would be a little bit of a pain in the rear. Like in an ideal world, we should really just say, hey, I want to make a new lottery, click a button, and poof, here it is suddenly. So we need to figure out some more clever way, or a little bit more programmatic way, to obtain the address of the person who is creating this contract. Fortunately, there's a really easy way to do that. Let's take a quick pause. We'll come back to the next section and we'll talk about exactly how we can automatically find out the address of the person who is attempting to create an instance of our contract. So we'll take care of that in the next video.